Welcome to AI Unraveled, your daily briefing on how technology is changing the way we live, work, and connect. It is Wednesday, April 1st, 2026. I'm your co-host, Anna. Today's episode is brought to you by Jamgamind. As we find out that tools like Perplexity are allegedly sharing our private conversations with Google and Meta, your digital safety has never been more critical. And when algorithms start dictating healthcare or removing books from schools, you need forensics to understand the system. Jamgamind delivers human-verified, technical-grade analysis for the individual. Visit jamgamind.com. Pro tip: you can enjoy all of our human interest briefings and weekly recaps completely uninterrupted by subscribing directly on Apple Podcasts for an ads-free experience. Today, we are talking about trust. Trust in our employers, trust in our transportation, and trust in the chatbots we talk to every day. Right now, the American public is losing that trust at a record pace. Let's unravel what it means for you.
Imagine waking up today, grabbing your coffee,
Yeah.
and just looking at two completely different feeds of reality.
Oh, yeah. It really feels like two different planets right now.
Exactly. Because in one feed, you've got this tech boardroom utopia. And I mean, the numbers we're seeing today, April 4 in 2026, they barely even sound real anymore.
Right. They're totally astronomical.
Like, OpenAI just closed a $122 billion funding round. That pushes their valuation to $852 billion, all to launch this massive new SPUD model and their unified enterprise super app.
Which is just staggering on its own, but then you look at Elon.
Right. SpaceX confidentially filed for what's projected to be the largest IPO in human history. They are seeking a $1.75 trillion valuation to fund XAI and the Starship program. It's just this accumulation of wealth that defies gravity.
It really is the architecture of a new Gilded Age. The
Wow.
capital concentration is just unprecedented. And, the narrative they are spinning to investors is that they finally built this ultimate friendly co-pilot for humanity.
But then you look at the other feed, right? The reality on the ground for you, the listener, the individual worker, the digital citizen, you are definitely not experiencing a friendly co-pilot.
No, absolutely not. Not even close.
People are getting locked out of their livelihoods overnight. We're seeing software literally trapping people in moving vehicles, algorithms censoring literature, and, research assistants quietly siphoning off financial data.
It's completely dystopian when you actually lay it out like that.
Today's stack of sources is giving me absolute whiplash. So our mission for this deep dive on AI Unraveled is to act as your digital rights advocates. We're cutting through the trillion-dollar valuations to look at what this tech is actually doing to the human being at the end of the terminal.
And what's fascinating here is how perfectly that disconnect is captured in the new Quinnipiac public sentiment poll we got today.
Oh man, that poll is just bleak.
It really is. I mean, the adoption metrics look great on paper, right? AI usage jumped 13% recently. People are actively using it. But the psychological toll is just massive.
The anxiety numbers are off the charts.
Exactly. 70% of respondents are reporting severe job anxiety. 7 out of 10 people think this technology is actively coming for their paychecks. And the wildest stat to me, only 5% of people actually believe AI is being developed in their best interests.
A 5% trust rate. I mean, that is a catastrophic failure of public relations. It's what I'm calling the trust deficit. The industry wants total integration into your life, but they're delivering maximum instability.
Yeah, that instability is really hitting the labor market hard right now.
The workforce gaslighting is just intense. We really have to figure out if these algorithms can actually replace massive swaths of workers, or if AI is just like the ultimate corporate smokescreen.
Which brings us to the Oracle layoffs this week. It is the perfect case study for this. We're looking at potentially 30,000 global positions being eliminated.
30,000? That's a small city.
Right. But the sheer scale is one thing. The actual mechanics of how they fired people tells you everything about their priorities.
It was incredibly cold. I mean, workers were totally locked out of their internal systems, VPNs, their email, right at 3 a.m. Pacific time. Zero warning. Just a dead screen.
And then they just had to sit there for 3 hours until 6 a.m. when a generic termination email arrived signed by, quote, Oracle leadership.
Unbelievable. But when you look at the financials, it kind of clicks into place. Oracle stock took a massive hit, losing almost half its value since last September. And they're staring down this $156 billion total build-out estimate for AI infrastructure.
Yeah, they desperately need cash. They need to free up $50 billion this year alone just for AI data center construction.
So they're just firing the humans to buy the servers. It's like tearing down the load-bearing walls of your own house just so you can afford a really smart thermostat.
That is exactly what it is. They're aggressively shifting operating expenses, which is human salaries, into capital expenditures like cooling systems and chips.
It's cannibalizing the workforce that builds your product to buy tech that's supposedly going to make that same workforce more efficient. The logic just eats itself.
Well, Marc Andreessen had a super cynical breakdown of this on the 20BC podcast. He basically argues that AI causing these layoffs is mostly a farce.
A farce. How does he justify that?
He claims that major tech firms are actually overstaffed by anywhere from 25 to 75% because of pandemic-era hypergrowth. So executives finally have this socially acceptable excuse to clean house.
So they just point to the server racks and say, we're pivoting to AI efficiency.
Exactly. It's way easier than admitting to the board that they grossly mismanaged their hiring for the last 4 years. Andreessen literally called it the silver bullet excuse.
Okay, AI washing to cover up executive bloat makes sense for middle management. But I push back on the idea that the threat is totally fabricated. Look at the CEO of America's largest public hospital system.
Right, the radiologist comments?
Yeah, he went on the record openly stating he's preparing to replace radiologists with AI diagnostic models. We're not talking of an administrative bloat there. We're talking about directly replacing highly specialized doctors who trained for a decade.
It shows this terrifying rush to deploy models in high-stakes environments. They want to remove the most expensive human from the loop, even when we're talking about life-or-death diagnostics.
When hospitals threaten to replace your doctor with an algorithm, you need more than a headline. You need forensics. JamGamind provides human-verified, technical-grade analysis for the individual navigating these shifts. Visit djamgamind.com.
And you know, that urgency to cut the human out is exactly what the AI labs are doing internally, too. OpenAI is ruthlessly cutting anything that isn't their enterprise super app.
Oh, like killing off the Sora video apps.
Exactly. Fujisimo's entire department just got renamed to the AGI deployment team. They walked away from a $1 billion licensing partnership with Disney. They're reallocating all their compute power away from consumer creative tools.
Because the margins just aren't there. They're abandoning the side quests to focus on this industrial profit engine.
Yep. And the second they stepped back from video, Google rushed in with VO 3.1 Lite, pricing video generation at just 5 cents a second.
5 cents a second. The pivot to enterprise profit is just leaving the individual worker in the dust. We are basically outsourcing our economic value to these systems.
But the natural consequence of outsourcing your economic value is that eventually you start outsourcing your human judgment too.
Right.
Like if a hospital trusts an algorithm over a doctor, it's a very short leap for institutions to start trusting algorithms over human curation.
Which brings us to arguably the most dystopian piece of news today. A school district literally used an AI system to audit its library, and it abruptly pulled 200 books from the shelves.
The head librarian said she was completely gobsmacked.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the algorithm flagged the Twilight series, which is one thing, but it also pulled George Orwell's 1984.
You cannot write this kind of irony.
No. It's an opaque piece of software, operating with zero human oversight, enforcing a ban on a novel about totalitarianism and thought control.
It just perfectly exposes the limitations of how these models process context. An algorithm doesn't read a book. It just weighs tokens, right? It maps statistical proximity.
So it sees the words in 1984 and just freaks out.
Basically, it detects a high density of tokens related to government oppression and psychological torture. It has absolutely no capacity for literary framing. It doesn't know the difference between a cautionary tale and an instruction manual.
It just hits a threshold for controversial themes and triggers a ban. This is algorithmic censorship at its most blunt. It just strips all human nuance out of the equation.
And it begs the massive question, who is actually programming these guardrails?
Right. Who gets to decide what is acceptable for human consumption? Because honestly, we are handing our libraries over to companies that can't even secure their own code.
Oh man, the Anthropic leak.
Yes. Anthropic just accidentally leaked over 512,000 lines of their Claude Code software scaffolding, and it was just due to a simple packaging error.
For a company that constantly preaches about constitutional AI and safety, it's a horrible look.
And just to clarify for everyone, the scaffolding isn't just a bunch of complex math. It's way more sensitive than the model weights. It's the invisible rulebook.
Yeah, it contains the system prompts, the operational limits, how it filters requests. It is the literal mechanism of control.
Exactly. So if they can't protect the foundational rules of their flagship AI because of a sloppy pipeline error, how can we possibly trust them to be the arbiters of human knowledge in our schools?
The competence just does not match the ambition right now.
And look, when brittle software is stuck in a chatbot window, it's annoying. But when it escapes into the physical world, it becomes a literal trap.
Like what happened in Wuhan.
Yes, over 100 Baidu robotaxis just suffered a simultaneous catastrophic system failure. They didn't pull over safely, they just bricked themselves in the middle lane of a fast-moving ring road.
A mass shutdown of autonomous vehicles at highway speeds. That implies a massive flaw in how they receive over-the-air updates or talk to servers.
Think about the psychological terror of being inside one of those cars. No steering wheel, no pedals. You are just locked in a metal box, frozen in the center lane, while traffic is swerving around you at 60 miles an hour.
People were desperately mashing the SOS buttons.
Yeah, and eventually they just forced the doors open and fled on foot through active traffic. And Baidu operates over 1,000 of these things, and they couldn't even give an immediate explanation for why 10% of their fleet just died.
The loss of physical agency is just visceral. And what's really terrifying is scaling that vulnerability up to the military.
Oh, the Saronic funding.
Right. Saronic is this defense contractor in Texas, and they just closed a $1.75 billion round. They are building the Corsair, which is a 24-foot, fully autonomous Navy drone boat.
Designed to carry heavy military payloads for 1,000 miles.
Operated remotely by software. If a software glitch can strand commuters in Wuhan, imagine that same level of code managing heavily armed naval vessels in contested waters.
We're handing over the keys to physical reality to systems that still hallucinate basic facts. It's madness.
It really is. But while physical entrapment is scary, the digital entrapment happening right now is arguably more insidious because you can't see it.
Like the Perplexity lawsuit.
Exactly. This lawsuit filed by a Utah resident is a total watershed moment for privacy.
Because usually it's just companies suing AI for scraping news articles, right? But this is a user suing for the direct exploitation of their most sensitive personal data.
Perplexity markets itself as this ultra-private, secure research assistant, so this user was typing in complex queries about their personal finances and investments.
Assuming it was a closed loop, just a private chat with a machine.
Right, but the lawsuit alleges that Perplexity has third-party trackers embedded on the homepage. Before the AI even answers your question about mortgage rates, these trackers are allegedly scraping the actual text you're typing.
Wait, scraping it while you type?
Yeah, scraping the document object model. They package those highly sensitive queries and route them directly to Meta and Alphabet's ad networks.
So the tool they sold you as a private assistant is functionally a wiretap for data brokers.
They'll point to buried clauses in their terms of service, of course, but the mechanism is clear. They are intercepting user intent.
You type your financial anxieties into a box, thinking you're getting objective advice, and the system immediately sells your vulnerability to Mark Zuckerberg and Google so they can hit you with targeted ads. It is a complete betrayal.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, knowing that this invisible data harvesting as standard operating procedure makes the new hardware pivots deeply alarming. They aren't satisfied with just your search history anymore.
No, they want your biology. Which brings us to Google's new screenless Fitbit band.
The one Steph Curry has been pushing in those sponsored videos.
Yeah. They're framing it as this minimalist fitness tracker. But taking the screen off isn't about minimalism, it's a behavioral trap.
Because without a screen, you can't just glance at your wrist for your step count. You are forced to open their new app, which routes everything through an AI personal health coach.
You don't get your raw data anymore. You get an algorithm's opinion of your body. And the data this AI demands is incredibly intimate.
It's way beyond tracking a jog.
It wants your mental well-being states, deep sleep cycles, reproductive cycle tracking, granular nutrition. It's building a real-time biological profile of you.
It demands total intimacy.
But why on earth should any citizen hand over their deeply personal biological metrics to an ecosystem that was literally just implicated in harvesting financial queries? Alphabet owns Google. The same company allegedly intercepting your perplexity searches is now asking you to trust an AI coach with your reproductive cycles.
The audacity is just staggering. And honestly, the public is starting to catch on. If we go back to that Quinnipiac poll, the class divide is glaring.
Oh, the demographic breakdown is wild.
52% of people earning over $200,000 a year believe AI does more good than harm.
Because that's the executive class, the
Yeah.
VCs. They're insulated from the consequences.
Exactly. But look at individuals earning under $50,000 a year. 60% of them say AI is doing more harm than good.
Because they're the ones feeling the friction. They're facing Oracle-style layoffs, dealing with algorithmic school censorship, or getting trapped in Baidu taxis.
The tech industry speaks in trillions, but the public is absorbing the human cost.
The trust deficit isn't a PR problem. It is a totally rational response. We've got workforce gaslighting, algorithms banning 1984, code leaking everywhere, cars freezing on highways, and research assistants selling our financial anxieties. If you are skeptical of this ecosystem, you are not a Luddite. You are just paying attention.
Absolutely. And, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over today. Amidst all this funding news, OpenAI's Sam Altman has been talking up their models reaching recursive self-improvement, or RSI.
Which means the AI is basically entering a closed loop, right? It's writing the code and optimizing the architecture for the next generation of AI.
Exactly. Humans are actively being phased out of the creation process. So the question you have to ask is, if we're building autonomous systems optimized purely for frictionless enterprise efficiency, at what point does that self-improving intelligence look at human privacy, our jobs, and free thought, and decide that we are just another inefficiency to be optimized out?
Man, the boardroom is building a machine that builds itself, while the rest of us are just trying not to get locked out of our own lives.
Subscribe to AI Unraveled on Apple Podcasts to enjoy this human interest briefing completely ads-free.
That concludes our human interest rundown for April 1st. The signal for today is the trust deficit. We are living in a moment where the technology is accelerating, but our faith in the people deploying it is collapsing. When an algorithm can be used as a scapegoat to fire thousands of workers or be programmed to rip classic literature off a library shelf, we are no longer talking about productivity. We are talking about power. As the tech industry celebrates trillion-dollar valuations and autonomous fleets, we have to keep asking, who does this actually serve? Because right now, the American public is answering that question with a resounding, not us. This episode was made possible by JamgaMind. For the forensic side of personal tech, visit jamgamind.com. And if you want to keep your daily news human and completely ad-free, hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts. I'm Anna. Stay human and keep unraveling the future.
And before you go, if your company is building the tools that power the workflows we talked about today, I'd love to showcase them to this audience. We don't just run ads, we build technical simulations that prove your value. Let's build something together. Visit jamgamind.com/partners to get started. Until next time, keep building.